It's funny how the sucky movies of the two franchises I'm reviewing fall in the same week. Alright, let's get this over with. The Fast and the Furious, the heart attack of a franchise, otherwise known as The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. And little did they know, this movie signifies that this franchise is in a coma until further notice. The Tokyo Drift is my least favorite of the series. It is directed by then newcomer Justin Lin, and Paul Walker's not in it, Vin Diesel's not in it. None of the characters from the original movies are not present within this film. Or kinda. They wanted to take a new direction with the series, but did it work? Well, let's see. Our new lead character is Sean, played by Lucas Black, and he is a real screw-up. At the beginning of the film, he races against his high school jock. The school jock is losing, and so he tries to car tag Sean and nearly kills him, but he ends up failing. But long story short, the cops get a hold of them. The high school jock ends up going free, but Sean, this is like the third or fifth time that he's getting into trouble like this that involves cars, and so he gets sent to Tokyo with his father. And so he gets sent to live in Tokyo, Japan with his father. And now this is where the movie truly starts. The film is set in Tokyo, which is a bold choice for the studio to do. And I understand it's a new director. The director's going to have his own take on it, but there are some stuff in the movie that need to be addressed. Now, I will admit, the film is a little darker than the first two movies, but at the same time, it's like, when you're watching the movie, you're like, this feels different. This doesn't really feel like the first two movies. And the vibe of the movie is a little out of left field than the first two movies. One night, Sean goes out with his friend Twinkie, played by Bow Wow. But then Sean also comes across DK, which stands for Drift King. DK challenges Sean to a drift race, and he fails miserably. Then the next day he comes across Han, because Sean used Han's car during the drift race, which he wrecked in the race. So therefore he owes Han a new car. Now throughout the film, Sean goes under Han's wing, and they develop a close friendship. Now I will admit, one of my favorite things about this movie is the fact that this film is set in Tokyo, because again, every Fast and Furious movie is set in a new location, because the location is ultimately the personality of the movie, and Tokyo, Japan is the personality of this particular movie. And I love the Japanese scenery in this movie, and it definitely distinguishes itself from the previous two Fast and Furious movies. Let's talk about the characters. The lead character, Sean, played by Lucas Black, he was okay, though his acting wasn't really up to par around that time, but he was still okay and functional in the film. But his character, he's real screw up and juvenile. Like, every time he gets near a car, he just gets into trouble, and he never really learns from the mistake. And I think that's the one flaw I have with this character. But he's still a good street racer, though, and I do kind of like his story arc within the film. Which is him, because he's ultimately a fish out of water. He's coming from the south to Japan, and he's learning about the car scene in Japan. And he's learning to adapt there. Like, ultimately, he's a fish out of water. We also got his friend Twinkie, played by Bow Wow. Now, Bow Wow, he is good in most things that he's in. I actually think he has potential to be a good actor. Like, he was good in Roll Bounce. Hell, even Medea's Big Happy Family, I thought he was one of the strongest things about that movie. But in this movie, I don't really know. I'm not saying Bow Wow, he was terrible in the movie. He was just, I don't know. His character could have been played by anybody. What I'm saying. But the best way I can describe his character within the film is he is what Ludacris was in Too Fast, Too Furious. He's the eyes and ears in the streets. But he's still an okay character, especially when he pulls out his little Hulk car, which is ironic because Universal, at the time, they owned the Incredible Hulk. So it was nice that Marvel let them use the Hulk in the Fast and Furious movies. The past couple of weeks I've been reviewing Marvel movies and Fast and Furious movies. The world comes together after all. But another thing is the cars in these movies are slightly better than the last two movies. But you still have your classic cars, like you got all the muscle cars. DK, or Takashi, is played by Brian T. He is the Drift King, and he is the low-key villain, but he is also a villain that has to answer to a higher villain, because his uncle, he is part of the Yakuza. And that's another element that I also actually appreciated within this movie, is that you got the cars, but you also bring in the Yakuza, and that kind of mixes well together. Sean's love interest in this movie, Leela, is played by Nathalie Kelly. I think that's how you pronounce it. His love interest in the movie, she's really beautiful. And for anyone out there, if you don't know who she is the girl from Bruno Mars's Just the Way You Are video. But seriously, she is really, really beautiful. I remember I was watching this movie last night. After that, I Googled her. I saw her Instagram photos, and I was like, I am in love. But the real supporting character in this movie, this is what this movie is all about Han, played by Sean Kang. And Han is like the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Sean. In fact, quick fact here, Justin Lin actually based Han from another character from another one of Justin Lin's movies, which Sean King was actually played in. It's not official that that movie is part of the Fast and Furious movies, but it's nice that it's a little Easter egg to just put in there, though. But Han, he is a really cool character, though. Han, he really is a cool character, though. He illustrates that Han, he doesn't race for money. He races because it shows character. Han becomes Sean's friend and teaches him how to drift. Han also explained that he's helping Sean because he's the only one that's not afraid of DK. So, or as he would say in the movie, he is DK's kryptonite. Near the end of the film, DK's uncle was part of the Yakuza. He visits him and he tells him that Han has been stealing money from them. And so after that, DK confronts Han, and this leads to a car chase between DK, Han, and Sean and Neela. But in the end, Han gets T-boned by this random car. So after this, Sean goes to DK's uncle and he apologizes and gives him the money that Han owes. It proposes a drift race in the mountains. Long story short, DK loses and Sean wins. However, the climax of the movie, I didn't really feel satisfied with it. I mean, the race was cool and all, but the way they filmed it just kind of made it seem a little uninteresting. But however, before the credits of the film, we get to see Sean, he is the new DK, and then Tricky comes out to him and tells him that there's someone he wants to race the new DK, and he tells him that he knew Han and Han was family. And so he rolls up, and who is this unknown racer? It is Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel himself. That right there is what ties this movie to the previous Fast and Furious movies and the upcoming Fast and Furious movies. And so when I saw that, I was like, is Vin Diesel returning to this series? Now here's my issue with this movie, and I'm pretty sure it's everyone's issue with this movie as well. And that is where it's placed with the movie, because the studio wanted to take a different direction. But the next 3 movies after this goes back to the roots of the very first movie. But they plant all the Easter eggs to tie in with Tokyo Drift and how Han knows Dominic Toretto. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, okay, I understand you wanted to take the series to a different route, but it doesn't really add up to the other movies, though. Vin Diesel, he signed on as producer of the movie, and Justin Lin brought back Dominic Toretto for possible sequels, and took the series back to what it was. But as of now, Tokyo Drift stands as the last film of the Fast and Furious franchise chronologically, or was, since Furious 7 is about to come out, and that actually takes place after Tokyo Drift. But Fast and Furious 4, 5, and 6, they take place before 3, and 3 just happened out of nowhere without 4, 5, and 6. And to me, it makes me feel like Tokyo Drift was a dumbass decision. And especially since we don't really see these characters after the 3rd movie at all. Like Sean, we don't see him at all. Twinkie, we don't see him at all. And it's been said that Lucas Black is returning to the character for Furious 7, but they haven't really said anything about it, though. Now, I can understand you're trying to keep the film as secret as possible so that you can keep it for the surprise for when we finally see the movie. I can understand that, but how much of a role is it going to have in Furious 7? In the end, I'm just saying, Tokyo Drift threw everyone off because it happened out of nowhere with new characters that we really didn't care about or know about. And it was revealed that 4, 5, and 6 were prequels to Tokyo Drift, but at the same time, they are also the true sequels to the first film. So they should have started with 4, 5, and 6 instead of just giving us Tokyo Drift out of nowhere and not knowing what 3 is about without seeing 4, 5, and 6. Now, before I end this review, I gotta address the soundtrack, because the soundtrack, it is good, and it's definitely different from the first 2 soundtracks. Like, the first 2 soundtracks, it was like straight up hip-hop, and when we get to this one, it kind of has that reggae, Asian pop feel to it. And even though it has songs that you don't understand the words to, and it's still some songs that you can get jiggy with it. Like, you can just be in the club like, I don't understand the words they're saying, but the song's tight though. But my favorite song off the soundtrack is 6 Days, the remix, and it's a song that played during the opening credits of the movie. The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift is definitely the weakest of the Fast and Furious movies, but as a movie for me and my personal experience with the movie, even though it's my least favorite of the series, I still found it pretty cool. It had some pretty okay characters in it, the story was pretty cool, and a good concept of the street racing aspect within the film. They even still keep the underlying theme of the series, which is loyalty and family though, so I can still appreciate that. However, if you truly did not like Tokyo Drift, I understand. I'm just saying, it was okay from where I stand with it. I will give the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift a C- for it's a rental. That's it for the day. You like what you see, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my other channel. The links are in the description below. And be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and be sure to check out my website. Peace.